every time I look, it seems like I'm finding out something new that I didn't know before. Right now I'm reading the Essentials of Strength and Conditioning. It's the NSCA text. It's a pretty decent, if flawed, overview of strength science and exercise physiology and training. And I was reading there about cartilage and how there are some studies out there in the literature that say that when you do structural exercises under a load, you increase the pressure in the joint capsule, which promotes diffusion of nutrients and fluid and oxygen through cartilage and helps promote growth and repair. And, you know, I was sort of brought up to think that this is a notoriously avascular, atrophic tissue, that it didn't repair, that it didn't grow. And that turns out maybe not to be true. I mean, I need to look at the wet science on that, but this old man would like it to be true. So, you know, I'm always learning something new about the benefits of resistance training. And the more we look at the benefits of resistance training across populations, the more we find it to be universally beneficial. So we can start real quick and easy with the musculoskeletal system. Obviously, strength training has profound implications for the musculoskeletal system. It goes beyond mere strength, of course. All right, we know that the changes in the musculoskeletal system have profound implications for other systems as well. But these adaptations, they go beyond pure strength. They are trophic responses that increase the amount of tissue, they compress the morbidity of aging, they improve the quality of life, they preserve a full range of motion, they increase the resistance to disease and injury. Strong people are harder to break. And they permit and promote an active lifestyle that can be maintained well into the advanced decades of life. So the way I think about it is this: every time we train, we're making a deposit into our physiologic 401k, right? We're banking tissue for retirement. That's what we do when we train, right? Because we're actually adding tissue, or at least we're not losing tissue. With resistance training is an increase, obviously, in strength. We see an increase in muscle fiber size. We see an increase in muscle cross-sectional area, which is directly related to force production. We see an increase in the rate of force development, right? All of these things are terribly important to organisms that have to move around in their daily life. Have to do structural exercises, meaning squats and deadlifts and cleans, so that you get adaptations in the axial skeleton, in the vertebrae, in the pelvis, in the hips, where it's going to have the biggest payoff later in life. So the exercises that we do, as opposed to machine exercises, are the ones that are going to cause the most salutary osteogenic adaptations for our clients. The idea is to bank that. It's just like saving for retirement. The earlier you start, the better off you are. The elderly. So, you know, I've written about this in the past. At the other end of the spectrum, you have the elderly. What is the aging phenotype? Well, the aging phenotype in Western cultures is atrophy. It's loss of tissue. These people their physiologic 401k is depleted. They got nothing to retire on. They're osteopenic. They're sarcopenic, right? The only thing they've got left is fat, right? And they've got type 2 diabetes, and they've got hypertension, and they've got atherosclerotic heart disease, the whole metabolic syndrome, what I call diattension obesity. They always come together. Obesity, hypertension, diabetes, congestive heart failure, right? Congestive heart failure, by the way, is a huge part of the phenotype of aging in the United States, and it sucks. If you were offered the choice between having congestive heart failure and a generic cancer, take a cancer. Who has the better quality of life? A sedentary 80-year-old, or the guy who's 80 years old and can still like squat 1.5 times his body weight and deadlift twice his body weight? That's a guy who every time he does that, he's basically flooding himself with trophic factors and sending a signal to his body that he's still growing. He needs to add more tissue, functional tissue, not fat tissue, right? That's huge. Basically, what we're talking about here is the compression of morbidity. That's the buzzword in the aging sciences community. I don't know of any exercise program or of any dietary regimen that significantly prolongs lifespan in populations. But I do know about compression of morbidity, compressing the decline of aging, the sick part of aging, into a smaller and smaller part of our life. Can I use this, Rip?
Please.
If you look at healthcare expenditures over a lifetime, you get a bathtub curve, right? So when you're first born, you use up a lot of dollars, right? And then as you go through the rest of your life, you don't use up so many healthcare dollars as a population. And then towards the end, this is what happens to your healthcare costs, right? This is what we're confronted with. By bringing about a compression of morbidity and expanding the amount of time at the end of somebody's life that they're functional, instead of allowing them to go into this long, slow decline where they just sort of dwindle over time. We're really talking about medicine here. And of course, when we talk about medicine, we think about treating sickness. Medicine at its most powerful is about the promotion of health and the expansion of human potential. That's what medicine is. That's what real medicine is. The take-home message here, just to sum up a whole lot of literature, is that with very few exceptions, everybody who can lift weights should lift weights. And we see now literature, data on patients that you would have never even dreamed in the past of putting under the bar. We see data on patients with congestive heart failure. We see data on patients with neuromuscular degenerative diseases, data on patients with arthritis. We see data on patients with kidney failure, patients with dialysis-dependent kidney failure. I mean, these populations that you would have thought, you know, you should get a laminated no-duty chip. I mean, really, a little old lady with congestive heart failure, or a guy who's on dialysis Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you think he gets a pass, right? No. The literature tells us that these populations tolerate resistance training and they benefit from it.
Just squat.
I wanna go outside and play. I said I wanna go outside and play today. The sun is shining and it's looking so great.
People do not know how to squat, do not have normal hip function, don't have normal leg function. They can't jump, run, throw, or punch correctly.
The squat, absolutely fundamental, building block to everything else that we're going to do in CrossFit. So do this well, and everything else you do will fall into place. Do this poorly, and everything else is going to be challenging for you.
I want him in that posture. And if we have to find a post and he grabs it and I got a knee in his back and I'm forcing him in there and looking to see if it can be balanced or not, if I'm like, why can't I get you down there? Are you fighting me, or is it the limit of the range of motion? I'm going to have him, you know, give me hip flexion, and if I real suddenly I get a round lower back and I ran out of hamstring, well, that's part of the problem, you know. And I might assign some other hamstring duty, but suppose I didn't really find that. And it's just neurological. I want you down there in the squat anyway.
The answer that I always give them is that when it's performed well, when we have a good example of a squat being performed well, the hips take most of the force below 90 degrees. The most forces that the knees experience is actually above 90 degrees. That's where they experience the biggest. It's going to be shifted to the hips as we descend below 90. Right? So it's actually safer, you know, and it all leads back to why full range of motion, because we can bet.
I feel it in my quads, I only feel it in my quads. I don't care where you feel it, I'm telling you where it needs to come from. And you make me happy when you go, wow, I really feel that back here. Try to feel it there. Wake up. Can you hurt yourself squatting? Easily. What's the formula? Don't know how, add a lot of weight. But done safely, correctly, at light loads. The only risk with this stuff is not doing it, and that risk is profound.
Weight on the heels, back arched, and your chest up. From this position, what I want you to do is initiate that squat, not with your knees, but with with your butt. I want you to send your butt back and down. At 45, she sends it, and she goes down to parallel, which is the crease of her hip, okay, the top of her hip is below the top of her knee. And then from there, she drives straight up out of those heels.